What's going on, guys? Like always, thank you for being here. I appreciate you for tuning in to the Take Flight Spit and Fire podcast. We got a special edition for you guys this week. As you know, we normally go on Mondays. Today, we're meeting with an awesome guy, a great, big, awesome Jets talker on Twitter, on YouTube. Does it all. I'd like you guys to meet Richie.
How's it going, Harrison? I appreciate you having me on. I'm excited to talk Jets football. And, again, I appreciate it because, everybody in this Jets community, I really want to see them all get into this industry because the platform in today's day and age, anybody can have a voice, and we're all Jets fans. We're all in this together. And I love hearing takes from all over the place. And as we know, it's a time where Jets fans are divided in terms of what we want at the quarterback, what do we want to do, this and that, the coach. But now I feel like everything's changing and we're all getting behind each other. And I'm just excited for the Jets football, and I'm definitely excited to be on your show, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I think you nailed it. It's the Jets community is totally like a family, like the way, we came together, especially with the whole Schlereth situation, anything, that really comes at us, we got each other's back. I've always felt like that with Jet fans. It's kind of like, people pick on the Jets. It's low hanging fruit. We know that, but we make our jokes. We make, comments, this, that, because it's our team. But when someone else comes in, we all kind of band together. I've always loved that. But yeah, man. So yeah. But you guys out there, if you want to check out Richie, as you know, he's on New York Jets Media, big account. He's always giving you guys videos of stuff, interviews, everything going on with the Jets. Myself, I know it was a unique situation getting into this. Richie, if you'd love to, tell the people what brought you to, this endeavor.
Yeah, man. So I was actually in college and I made a YouTube channel about music, actually. And it was me reacting to music. And that was my first YouTube channel. It was called My Name, Richie Mollura. And then I'm like, you know what? I love this, but my passion really is sports. So I thought, why not make a channel about the New York Jets and call it Jets Media? And I said, you know what? No matter if the Jets are really good or really bad, I'm going to make it my duty to record a video before and after each game. This was Sam's rookie season, I believe. And no, it was a sophomore season, excuse me. So I was determined to do it. And then I just let it fly. And all of a sudden, here I am today. My YouTube channel has grown to over 6,000 subscribers, which is crazy. And honestly, I'll backtrack a little bit. I'll start with Twitter because Twitter's where I got my first big following of Jets fans. And I had this following, and I'm like, hey, I have thousands of people that love hearing my takes of the Jets and love seeing what I have to say about the Jets and, getting people interactive. So I thought, why not, throw my YouTube followers onto my YouTube channel because I love talking about the Jets. And I never would have thought in a million years it would come to this moment where I'm at right now. And I'm very thankful to have to be a part of a Jets community that is so awesome and so passionate. And I think Jets football is on the rise, like I mentioned earlier, and the Jets community is getting better and better. And I'm just very thankful, like I said, to be part of such a fantastic community with the New York Jets.
That's exactly, man. I feel the exact same way. And that's actually one of the first things I wanted to talk to you about. I wanted to ask you, how you felt, how stoked you were with that Robert Saleh hire. Because, I was stoked. All Jet Twitter was stoked. That was the guy everybody wanted. And me personally, looking, the way he is, I can't remember us having a coach like this or being excited like this since Rex Ryan. Like, those are the days I think of, like, the energy in the locker room, just all that.
Yeah, man. I mean, going into the coaching search, I had confidence that Joe Douglas was the one that was going to make the decision. And we all know the nightmare of the Adam Gase hire. I feel like 95% of Jets fans knew it was a mistake right when the moment we hired him, but it was totally different. We knew what happened when Robert Saleh came to the building. We did not want him to leave the building. And then when he left the building, Jets fans were freaking out. They're like, no, I cannot believe it. Robert Saleh's on his way to interview with this team and this team. He's not going to be our head coach. And then finally we get the deal done the next day. And I was so excited. He fits every single mold that this New York Jets team needs to be the head coach. It's everything we've lacked, especially with Gase and even Todd Bowles. What he's going to bring to this Jets football team, which is most important, is a leader. He's not coaching one side of the ball. We know that he's a defensive-minded guy. He's a defensive coordinator. He comes from that side of the ball. But he's a CEO type of coach. He's not going to be calling the plays on the defense, which is really important. It's going to be Jeff Ulbrich, as we know. And he's going to be coaching all three phases of the ball. He's going to be learning these players on and off the field, getting that relationship. And he wants players that wants to play for him. He wants to build a relationship with his players where they feel like it's in the player's duty to not let the coaching staff down. And that's like the opposite type of chemistry that Gase kind of had. Gase kind of just threw schematics at the offense and let Greg Williams run the defense. It was just a recipe for disaster. It was just like, all right, my playbook and my schemes is going to win us football games. And that's not how you win in this league. You need to have personnel. You need to have a culture built, and you need to have energy and passion for the game. And Robert Saleh fits that mold, and I'm so excited that he's our Jets head coach because I can't wait to see him on the sidelines fired up. You know, me and my friend Jack, who's always on my channel, we always make a joke whenever Quinnen's going to have a sack. Robert Saleh's going to be the first one up there, and he's going to go and like tackle Quinnen on the floor and just get so hyped up. And then Makai's going to come, and, you know, it's just like, I feel like it's going to be a completely different team come this season in 2021 with the coaching staff, brand new quarterback, so many new free agents. We got 10 draft picks, could increase with trades. So it's a good time to be a Jets fan, and I really sense some positive outlook in the future for the New York Jets.
I'm with you, man. That I couldn't agree more. That's excellently said. And that's really, you know, the same way I felt, especially when they brought in Robert Saleh. You mentioned that CEO type. That was a big thing with me because I figured, you know, his defense was really solid when he came in, but I felt he was going to bring in a defensive coordinator, was what I was hoping for. It's what I wanted. And it's what he wound up doing. And that was really a big thing for me, that being that CEO type, taking the step back, you know, managing the team, leading everybody. And like you mentioned, the energy, which is just, that's it. I mean, the guy needs a get back guy. Like, and of all things, we hired the get back guy. Like, that's how you do it. Like, you're doing it right. You brought in the guy that's his job. He knows it, and his job is to keep him back. And I love that. So exactly. Shout out to Jimmy. Yeah, Jimmy popped in. Appreciate you, man, saying what's up. Thank you for being here, my man.
What's up, Jimmy? Appreciate you, man.
Yep. But hey, and shout out to, you know, thank God. Appreciate you guys, you know, all you guys. Thank you. Appreciate you being here. But yeah, the Robert Saleh thing, you know, that was just that was it for me, man. And I think you nailed it with everything you literally said. And you said it with the culture changing, and I think that's the biggest aspect of all of it. Because, you know, you see people all the time now saying, "Oh, the Jets are doing it again. They're going for another quarterback," but it's a whole nother situation. I mean, you can't say it's the same narrative or the same thing. And then the same people are saying that Joe Douglas was a good hire, was a good GM. They finally have the right guy in Robert Saleh. So finally things are being done right. And I think that's the biggest thing we saw with guys, you know, that wanted to come in as well. Like Lawson literally said, I'm coming here to play for a guy like Robert Saleh. So, and getting into that with the defense, one of you wanted to talk about how you feel about that 4-3 transition, because I personally love it.
Yeah, man. As we know, we were 3-4 defense under Williams, and I'm pretty sure we're the same way under Bowles. So it's going to be a new defensive scheme coming into the New York Jets this season. And if you look at the success of Robert Saleh in San Francisco, you see what you need, and you need men up front. And that's exactly what this New York Jets defense is doing in free agency, getting Carl Lawson, getting Vinny Curry, the veteran. I think Vinny Curry is going to be a very underrated acquisition for the New York Jets. He reminds me of Steve McClendon, not with this play on the field, but that veteran locker room presence. They play different positions. McClendon's more of an interior defensive lineman, and Carl Lawson's an edge rusher, as we know. But we needed that veteran that can really teach the young guys. Because remember, this defensive line is very young. You know, Quinnen Williams, John Franklin Myers, Foley Fatukasi, even Carl Lawson's young. And we still got guys like Bryce Huff, Jabari Zuniga. We know who's on this defensive line. They're young animals. And now bringing in a Super Bowl champion in Vinny Curry, who's been around the league and been with Joe Douglas, I think he's going to provide a very well-needed veteran presence. And that's what this 4-3 defense is all about, like dominating the front seven. I think that we need a linebacker, and I think we're going to tackle that in the draft. But what we're doing to that front seven is scary, and I feel like the sack exchange is officially coming back. I don't want to call it now because there's still a long ways to go, but if you look at paper and you see who's on this roster, it's really hard to imagine the Jets not getting to the quarterback more than they have in the past 5 or 10 years, because we know that edge rushers and never really succeeded in the Jets in the past couple seasons, and we've always needed that. And we feel like Carl Lawson's going to be that guy, and match him up with Quinnen Williams, who we think his potential's through the roof. I feel like the best is yet to come from him in particular. We have that run stuffing guy in Foley Fatukasi that's going to be subbing in on run downs. And then John Franklin Myers is versatile. He can go on the outside. He can go on the inside. And he's a very slept-on Swiss Army knife type of player. So this 4-3 defense that we're bringing in is going to be interesting to watch because it's a different scheme than what we're used to. But I'm not going to say it's a concern because I think that they're going to tackle in the draft. But we definitely need a linebacker, and we definitely need corners. But the one thing I will say about corners is Robert Saleh's system is meant to make cornerbacks' jobs life easier. So what they're trying to do is tackle the line of scrimmage, make sure that we can get to the quarterback and stop the run, because when you do that, the cornerbacks don't really have to worry too much. And that's not saying we can just get away with having scrubs at the cornerback position, but we need to make sure that this defensive line is living up to the potential that this coaching staff is presenting itself. And I don't think you guys realize how important coaching is in sports in general. I'm just going to make a quick analogy to my New York Knicks. I know this is not a basketball podcast, but still,
it's all good, man.
What the Knicks are doing with Tom Thibodeau and their new coaching staff, first year here, the Knicks have been a mess for 7 years straight. And now look at them. They're the 4th seed in the East because of coaching. They basically had the same roster last year. And now obviously they have new rookies and a couple new veterans, but it's all about coaching in this league. And it's 2 different leagues, so it's hard to compare because football and basketball, there's way more players, yada, yada, yada. But what Thibodeau's doing with the Knicks is he's building a culture, forming an identity. And that's exactly what the Jets need to do with Robert Saleh. They need to build a culture, form an identity, and put the players in the right positions to succeed. And I feel like we're going to see that in Robert Saleh's first season as a New York Jets head coach.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. I totally agree. And the biggest thing, like we said, switching to that 4-3 was, the pass presence. And you mentioned that, with the cornerback situation, it's interesting in this new system. It's a Saleh system. What makes it sense to him and what a lot of people like is you get to the quarterback, the corners, don't have to be as good. I mean, you still want good cornerbacks, but the system is getting to the quarterback. That's been, what his bread and butter has always been. Get pressure, get dominance, make the quarterback make mistakes. And we have a great front seven. You mentioned a couple of guys. Well, we have a good front four. It's probably the way to, I would say. I mean, yeah, we have a good front four. I like what we have on the line. I really do. Like you mentioned with the edge rushers. I want to get into them in a minute, with the interior defensive linemen we have as well. But at linebacker, I think what's crazy is a lot of people, when you look at the picks right now, they tend to talk more about cornerback. Like you see corner at 23 or corner at 34 if people aren't going lineman, which I think lineman's the better way to go, offensive lineman. But linebacker is such a bigger need. And I talked about this the other day, on my channel. I put something out. Just in a nutshell, if we look at the corner situation, Hall had a great year last year. He looked like a potential CB1, and that was in a horrible system. That was in the Gase system that we agree was bad. So hopefully, that's just barely scratching the limit for him. We're hoping, Austin can be good. I really like Guidry a lot. I think he has a lot of potential in the slot. Really do. But at linebacker, Gerard Davis, we took a flyer on. I mean, the reason he got a cheap contract is for the first 4 years with the Lions, he hasn't been anything. He hasn't done anything. We're hoping, because he used to be a 22nd overall pick, that he's going to be really good. But so far, he hasn't been. So it's a hope. It's a flyer. I mean, if he doesn't pan out, we cut him. But a lot of people I've noticed are saying, we only need one linebacker because we have Davis. But we don't know what Davis is yet. So I feel like linebacker, especially with Mosley. I mean, Mosley, is coming back after not playing for 2 years, and he's close to 30 years old. So I'm hoping he's going to come back, not skip a beat, be like he was in 2019, but we don't know. I mean, and God forbid, he gets injured again. We honestly have nobody because Blake Cashman's the only one left and he can't stay healthy. So I feel like linebacker is such a bigger need the more I think about it than quarterback. And I feel like it's crazy that people aren't saying that, we need at minimum 2 linebackers in this draft.
I agree. I think linebacker is the most underrated position in terms of football. It's the quarterback of the defense. It's the guys that call the plays, that lines everybody up. And we were hoping that CJ was that guy when we gave him that contract, obviously, and nothing really went in his favor. He looked dominant in his first 3 quarters as a Jets middle linebacker. He had a sack, he had a fumble recovery, he had a pick 6, and then we know the history after that. So, we definitely need to draft a linebacker. I honestly am preparing myself for the Jets to low-key draft one earlier than people expect. I know a lot of people like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah out of Notre Dame at 23. If he falls there, I think that's an option. Me personally, and I know we're going to get into the draft later on, but I'm all offensive line. I really think that we need to beef up that offensive line, especially that we're drafting a new quarterback and we need to build a wall for him. But at the same time, if we do draft the linebacker that early, that's Robert Saleh down Joe Douglas's neck saying, yo, we need this guy. If you really want this defense to be next level, we have the defensive line. The only thing we're missing is a linebacker that we can build around. And remember, guys, Robert Saleh was a former linebackers coach. So that's his bread and butter. We know he's a defensive coordinator, but he specializes with the linebacker position. So no doubt in my mind, we're drafting a linebacker earlier in this draft than people really think.
Yeah, and I think that's an excellent point. A lot of people forget that, because they think about his defensive coordinating career with the Niners. They forget he did start as a linebacker coach. So if anyone's going to notice that problem, it's going to be him, and he's going to notice it quick because there's no one that can really cover. And again, like what we were saying before, if Davis doesn't pan out, if Mosley can't stay healthy, God forbid. That's why in the draft, I really like Nick Bolton at like 66 because I feel like he outstanding speed, agility, beast of a tackler, big hitter, excellent in zone coverage. His ability to look at the quarterback and view the play and knock it up is, part of none. Has to work on man coverage, but everyone's got to work on something. What I like about him is he can be plugged into the mic. So God forbid Mosley can't go, he can be plugged into the mic. And guys I like later, Chaz Surratt's a good option. Really big on Charles Snowden. Feel like that kid's just tapping the beginning of his potential. I really like him a lot. It's funny, you watch guys like Charles Snowden, he gets to the quarterback, but he doesn't have a pass rush tree. Like he's just that fast and that strong that he's just getting to the quarterback, which is fun to see. So if he develops even more and he's pretty decent in pass coverage, there's a lot of potential there in Charles Snowden. But you mentioned with the 4-3, with the guys, one guy, I think one of my favorite signings in free agency, figure we can get in a couple of those guys, is Carl Lawson. I mean, Carl Lawson, I feel like is an underappreciated signing. Haven't had any kind of, an elite or top edge rusher in 20 years since John Abraham, which is crazy. And you look at the numbers of Lawson, a guy like Quinnen Williams, he actually had almost 2.5 more QB hits than Quinnen Williams last year. He actually had 32 QB hits last year, which was second in the whole NFL, and 26 QB knockdowns, which was tied for first. And I remember when we first signed him, I looked at the sack numbers and, they were 5 sacks. I wasn't that impressed. But when you look beyond the numbers, these hits, these knockdowns, he's one of the most elite guys in the NFL. He's producing like par none to like TJ Watt, which means, 15 sacks like Watt had. I feel like it's in the cards, man. That's what the future is holding.
I agree. I think the best is yet to come for Carl Lawson. And what you notice from all of Joe Douglas's free agent signings is they're signing players that they feel like have not hit their peak yet, and they want them to hit their peak on their team. They're not signing players where they were excellent. For example, CJ Mosley, 4-time Pro Bowler. He's getting up there in age, and then Mike McCagnon threw him that contract. What we're doing is we're signing for upside. Carl Lawson fits that mold. He's 26 years old. I feel like the best is yet to come, and put him in a system like Saleh. And I feel like he was the missing puzzle to this entire defense. Obviously, we don't have the cornerback solution yet, and the linebackers that will be solved in the draft. But Carl Lawson's ability to get to the quarterback is unmatched. And like you said, if you look at the numbers briefly, you see the sacks, you're like a little concerned. But you look deeper into the analytics and what he's done to get to the quarterback at a consistent basis, and you compare it to TJ Watt and all these players. Now match him up next to Quinnen Williams, who is a dominant presence up the middle, who I think is going to have a breakout season even more than we saw from him last year. And that's going to just unlock from Carl Lawson. And the contract we gave him was, it was decent. We gave him a 3-year deal, $45 million, which you're going to have to spend a lot of money for a pass rusher because that's a very premier position in the NFL. And I'm all for it. I love that Joe Douglas put his money where his mouth is and he's building at the line of scrimmage. Now, the big question is, what is he doing about this offensive line? I know that he has a plan, so I'm not worried. I got to see what he does in the draft, but that's definitely a concern for me right now is this offensive line. But going back to Carl Lawson, such an underrated player. I feel like a very underrated part about him in particular is his character and his overall personality. He's a very bubbly guy. He feels like a guy just loves football, lives and breathes it, and wants to get better. Goofy. I just feel like he's a perfect locker room presence as well. And that's another thing that Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh really want to prioritize is character. Guys that love football. They just live and breathe it. They don't want to bring in guys that just going to say, oh, I'm making these millions of dollars. I'm not motivated. Like they just love football. And that's exactly what Carl Lawson is.
I'm with you, man. And yeah, same thing. When we saw those numbers, it did really impress me. And other guys you mentioned, you talked about Quinnen Williams. That's what I loved when we switched to that 4-3, because the more you think about it, you realize, well, Quinnen Williams, he eats on the inside. I mean, you put him at a defensive end, he's okay. But as a defensive interior guy, he's one of the best in the league. So that's where he belongs. Franklin Myers, like you mentioned, can play inside and outside, versatile in that way. And last year, he had 13 QB hits, which is one of the, second on the team. Big numbers from a guy that just came on. He did it again. We talk about this in Gase's system, in Williams' system, in this bad system. So Saleh's infinitely better. what can, Franklin Myers' future hold. I think an underrated guy, which I want to bring up, I think is Foley Fatukasi, seems to be like the forgotten guy, which is interesting because you look at his numbers back, his PFF numbers just last year, he had an 81.6, sorry, 2 years ago in 2019, he had an 81.6, and last year he had an 80.1. He's always graded high these last 2 years. Excellent run stopper. I feel like he's getting better at pass rush. He kind of reminded me of Steve McClendon in a way, as being that, really good run blocker, like excellent in that capacity, decent pass rusher. I thought he was getting better. Mike Natty had tweeted some, swim moves he was doing, and I was like, I didn't know he could do that. So that was pretty legit. But I feel like he's kind of become the forgotten man, especially with guys like Sheldon Rankins coming in.
I agree. I think the role that he's going to play, you compared him to Steve McClendon, which I agree with. And another guy that I think he's very comparison to is Snacks, Damon Harrison. I feel like he's just that nose tackle that's going to stuff whenever it's a rundown. It's 3rd and 1, and they're expecting to run up the middle. Foley Fatukasi is going to be there to eat him up. I think he's getting better as a pass rusher. I think that he needs to work on that for sure, but he's elite at stopping the run. The Jets, the past couple of years under Greg Williams, the one thing that we've been good at consistently is stopping the run, and that's because of what we have up front with Foley. So I agree. I think he's a very underrated player, and I think the best is yet to come. And I just love the diversity we have on this defensive line, because we have the pass rusher in Carl Lawson, we have a run stuffer and a pass rusher in Quinnen Williams, and then we have the run stuffer guy up the middle with Foley, and then Jonathan Franklin Myers, who can do it all as well. And it's just a very deep line, and I really think people forget about Foley, and they'll be reminded come 2021.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more, man. And that's the point. Depth matters. People, look at it like it's a Madden game sometimes, and they're like, I got my starting 4 guys. I'm set. But people get tired. They're human beings, especially these men. I get tired. These guys are twice my size. So you need rotation. You need mobility. You need, guys like you were saying that, are better in this instance or better in that instance. So you need on a defensive line at least, forget 4. You need, if you have a front 4, you need at least 6, 7 decent guys. I think, like you said, we have that with, I think, probably Quinnen and Rankins. I could see Rankins starting in the interior there with Quinnen, with Franklin Myers subbing in. You mentioned Curry before. I think Curry, I had it down over here a second ago. The guy's going to be, what was he? He's going to be 33 next season, which is pretty old. People say, oh, he's getting up there. He's 33. But he had 10 QB hits last year. If he was on the Jets last year, he would have been tied for 3rd. And he's 33 years old. So a veteran presence, leader for Huff. You mentioned like Lawson on the edge. Edge is something we've missed. We have these interior guys. Yeah, I think people are going to see something we haven't seen in a while, and that's the Jets getting to the quarterback. Because I remember, with me, like the best Jets football, like when I was a kid at least, was defense. I remember with my dad, we were always joking around. We're like, put the defense on the field. Like the defense has a better chance of scoring.
Yeah.
So, that's what I'm excited about. I think that's what we're definitely going to be getting back to.
Yeah, I think the roots of Jets football, especially in our generation of growing up to watch them, is defense. We saw it on full display, and I feel like they're getting back to that. And we know that the last time we were in the playoffs was because that we had a solid defense and we had an offensive line. So let's do that. Let's make an elite defense and build a solid offensive line. And we're getting a rookie quarterback. So I'm not saying we're going back-to-back AFC championships again because of what we did with rookie Mark Sanchez, but we need to build the offensive line just as much as we're building this defensive line, because that's the biggest concern for me on this football team for sure. But at the same time, what makes me confident is I know that Joe Douglas has a plan. It's not like Mike McCagnon where he's just ignoring it. I know that Douglas is not going to ignore this offensive line. It's either that or this coaching staff has a lot of confidence in revamping the guys that they have on the roster.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. And you keep saying offensive line, and you're basically like you're speaking my language. Like I got my Nick Mangold jersey on, like that's my thing. If you see me on Twitter, I'm all about Creed Humphrey, all about the offensive line. Football's won and lost in the trenches. Joe Douglas went out in free agency, fixed the defensive trenches. Now he's going to address the offensive ones. I was going to get to it later, but you said offensive line enough. You got me. I'm in. I'm ready. So with the offensive line, man, like you said, football is won and lost in the trenches. That's how football is. And people tend to forget that football is a game of inches. Even though it's a passing league now, if your quarterback can't stay upright and can't, get to the skill guys and the running back can't get through the hole, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who you got back there. It doesn't matter what's going on. And all the times the Jets had good teams, going back to the years of, with Sanchez, we had just going down it, Ferguson, Mangold, Moore, Woody, everybody, that whole line was stacked. It was quality. All the times the Jets had quality teams. They had quality offensive lines. And you mentioned it. That was a big thing that I love about Joe Douglas. I feel like he gets that. Like he addresses the positions that everyone else, like you mentioned, McCagnon, just forget about. And that was the big thing I loved about Douglas. Like when he first came on, I talk about, with like people right when the first draft happened. I was literally the next day after the draft and I was like, Douglas killed it. And everyone's like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, these guys haven't played yet. I'm like, I've been watching, McCagnon for so many years, Itzik for so many years. Just the pick comes up. I have, I do my analysis. There's 4 or 5 guys I really like there. They are either out of left field or not in need or I love it, man. We finally got a guy that gets talent, gets value. It's the most important thing. They understand what they're doing, and offensive line is key. So I was going to get into it with the guys I like, but if you want to, kick it off because you had a mock that I really loved that you had the other time. If you want to talk about, offensive linemen you like, the positions you think they'd be good to go at.
Yeah, I am all in on doubling down on the offensive line at 23 and 34. I know some Jets fans agree, some don't. But that's what they need to do because we have the franchise left tackle, Mekhi Becton. And I think if there's one position that we want to build through the draft, especially Joe Douglas, that's the offensive line. I think what he did with the defensive line, he addressed that in free agency and he saved all the money. Or rather, he put all the money in the defensive line and now he wants to build the offensive line through the draft. And he has Mekhi Becton. We have George Fant, but he's not going to be our future right tackle. He's going to be solid this year. I like him. And Connor McGovern, I like him this year, but the interior offensive line scares me for the future. What I would love them to do, and it's a stretch because obviously everybody wants Elijah Vera-Tucker. No one knows if he's going to slide to 23. If he does, Joe Douglas is drafting him. I'm sorry, but if Elijah Vera-Tucker is available at 23, it's done. He's a New York Jet. So obviously that's a pipe dream for the Jets right now because he is a guy that's his draft stock is skyrocketing. I don't really see him getting past 15. And I honestly wouldn't even count out Douglas, trading up a couple picks to snag his guy because of the ammunition we have in, all these trades that we've done. And that's what's so awesome about this Jets team is usually I'm off the train of moving up because we cannot sacrifice our future. But now with the luxury of the ammunition that we have in place, we can trade up and still afford it. We can trade up and still have enough ammunition to fill in all the holes because that's what Joe Douglas is building. He's building a backlog of picks where he can be flexible, and I feel like he's going to be moving all over the place in this draft. But I love Creed Humphrey as well. I think my dream is Elijah Vera-Tucker and then Creed Humphrey. That's the 2 guys I want. I also like Tevin Jenkins as well because he's a versatile guy that can play inside and right tackle. So give me Jenkins, give me Creed Humphrey, or give me Elijah Vera-Tucker, Wyatt Davis. I think give me 2 of those 4, and I'm happy.
Oh man, like I said, you're speaking my language, and I've been on Twitter championing Creed Humphrey from the rooftops. I've loved this kid for over a year. He was my guy back, with last draft when he might have possibly declared. There was a chance that he was going to declare last year. He wound up not. Love this kid. People talk about him not being a first-round prospect. They don't take the right things into account. You mentioned it before. I've said it, on my feed that the center. They say he's not the best run blocker, which I disagree with that statistic to begin with. I showed in 2019 how his run blocking was more than, great, but his pass blocking is where it's at. They don't realize that he's an elite pass blocker. That's where he thrives. But more importantly, he's a cerebral center, which is something I talk about all the time. It's a word I use. You don't see that often, even in the NFL. Even in the NFL itself, it's rare to have a guy like they compare him to Nick Mangold. A guy, Jersey says that you see it all the time. You remember back when, Sanchez was there pointing out defensive alignments, pointing out shifts, pointing out, this guy might be blitzing from this end. People with McGovern last year, they were saying, oh, the guard play wasn't great. You think that would have flew under Nick Mangold? Like, you think Nick Mangold, he had more next to him and it's all working out. But if he didn't have good guard play, Faneca next to him, something would have happened. He would have said something. There would have been some words exchanged on the sideline. You need a leader in there. And a guy like McGovern, people say, he's okay. Well, he struggled for the majority of the season. The majority of the season, he was actually bad. He got it together toward the end, but he's not a young guy. I mean, he is what he is. So that's probably what his ceiling is. And he's an excellent run blocker, but he struggles in pass protection. That's why, again, I really like a guy like Creed. You bring him in, put him at center. I love that. Again, the better pass blocker, that's what he thrives in. Not a bad run blocker. He's going to call things out, grow with Zach Wilson. And McGovern, I think, would be a better guard because he's actually a pretty good run blocker. But people mention AVT. I think you nailed it. He's been talked up like crazy. Like, this has been the guy, like, the unheralded guard, which I don't get why people don't remember that for the majority of the season, it was AVT and Wyatt Davis as the best guards. Then AVT kind of just shot up because people realized that, AVT is great at everything and Wyatt Davis isn't the best pass protector. But again, put him next to Creed. That's what I want to do. Take him at 34, put him next to Creed. You got Davis, Creed, and McGovern. It's a hell of a middle line right there. But yeah. But with AVT specifically, he's been shooting up. I don't think he's going to make it, like you said, out of the top 15. I think he's probably going to go there.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. That's why I'm not trying to get too hyped up about AVT. It's more of a pipe dream. But yeah, man, I'm right there with you. I would love to go Creed Humphrey and Wyatt Davis at 23, 34 and slide McGovern to right guard. And then we have Mekhi Becton at left tackle. We got Wyatt Davis at left guard. We got Creed Humphrey at center. And then McGovern at right guard and George Fant at right tackle. And then later on in the draft, maybe draft another tackle that can be our future right tackle. Or and there's one player on this team that we don't even know what to talk about because we haven't seen him, and that's Cameron Clark. He redshirted his freshman year. His rookie season, he has not touched the field, so we do not know what we have in him. We always go back to the tape last year, that one game he had against Clemson. He dominated them because the big knock on him is he went to a small school, didn't go up against any competition, but the one game he did go up against top-tier competition, he dominated. So who knows what Cameron Clark's potential is on this team? He might just be the future backup left tackle for Mekhi or backup right tackle, or you can even slide inside. But that's an interesting piece. I think the interesting part about this Jets offensive line is the biggest weakness is the interior, but at the same time, I am not confident with the depth at tackle. Chuma Edoga is a guy that I had high hopes for, but he's kind of disappointing me. And outside of that, Cameron Clark is a guy that we just don't know. He's an unknown. We don't know what he has. Hopefully he can actually get some snaps and compete well in training camp. But the interior offensive line, I'm not confident with Greg Van Roten at all. Alex Lewis is a hit or miss for me. Yeah, I'd rather replace him with a rookie for sure. But we still need depth at the tackle position for sure.
Yeah, man. If we look at that line, offensive line is like that. That's my thing. Like, that's like other positions I'll take, some account for. But when offensive lineman, when you're bad, it makes me nuts. And I don't get the love for Alex Lewis at all. His form is just garbage. I'd written an offensive line article earlier in the season how so many offensive linemen win with strength and dominancy that you actually don't take that form into account. And, they don't allow a sack or their numbers are pretty good, but he's not that great a guy. I mean, I would prefer a guy like Van Roten that has outstanding form and isn't the strongest guy than a guy like Alex Lewis that's basically just being a bull out there is really and he's off balance a lot. I see him take missteps, and that's when he has problems because he winds up off alignment more often than not, unfortunately, if you watch him. But you mentioned it before with bringing those guys in. Wyatt Davis was in consideration with AVT as one of the best guards in this draft for the longest time. It was both of them. Davis had injury concerns, and that kind of dropped him. But at 34, that's insane, tremendous value. So you mentioned Mekhi Becton. The big thing with that, like Joe showed us, we hadn't taken an offensive lineman in the first round since 2006.
Yeah.
That was the last time the Jets had taken an offensive lineman.
We doubled down on offensive line.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like people are like, oh my God, wait a minute. The last time the Jets took offensive linemen in the first round, it was the biggest home run they've ever done. They got to Brickishaw Ferguson and Nick Mangold. They doubled down and that was it. And the answer since then is we don't need offensive linemen. McCagnon saying, I'm going to build Sam weapons and protect him and doing nothing. People say, Joe gave his promise. I think he fulfilled it by sending Sam to a place he can succeed. So that's my personal take on it. But that offensive line, is so important. It needs to be built, needs to be structured. You mentioned Fant. Fant has potential. I feel like it was his first year starting last year. He wasn't good. I mean, you call a spade a spade. He wasn't that good at all, but he's very athletic. So, and it was his first year starting. So I figure, that veteran presence on the line with Mekhi, we get, hopefully we get a guy like Humphrey. You mentioned Vera Tucker, Wyatt Davis. People talk about Creed Humphrey not even being available at 23. And, it's possible, man. I don't know what you think about that, but I've seen in some mocks, I did one the other night, he went at 22 to the Titans. I feel like no matter what, the Steelers are probably going to take him, so we can't wait to 34, like some people think, talk about.
Yeah, that's the draft, man. A lot of people slide when we don't expect them to, and a lot of people don't slide. Last year we all expected Denzel Mims to be a first round pick, and nobody expected him to be available at late in the second round, and we got him. So you got to realize that players are going to slide in the draft when we don't expect, and there's going to be players that go earlier than people expect. There's going to be teams that reach, and we're all going to be scratching our heads, and then it's going to work out in the end for them. It's just so interesting, and I just can't wait. We got 2 more days. I'm so low-key done with this draft talk because I just want to see it. Like all these mock drafts, I'm like, all right, what's the actual draft? You know what I mean? But I obviously love talking about it. But I'm just so anxious to see what happens come Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But I really hope, and I have confidence in it, that Douglas drafts 2 to 3 offensive linemen in this draft. Because if he doesn't, that's going to be concerning.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned, you and me are like literally on the same page here. I love it. I love how you mentioned, taking an offensive lineman later, a guy that has maybe guard or tackle potential or a pure tackle later in the draft to push George Fant because he wasn't that good. There's a lot of guys, depending. There's Cole Van Lanen I like, Alaric Jackson, Tommy Kramer is an interesting option. There's a couple of, decent linemen that could be taken later on that could maybe push to start. But if we can transition, because you mentioned Denzel Mims, and I think that's an excellent transition to go into. People I feel like are underappreciating our wide receiver core. Like there's so many things we need, and people are saying, we need these positional guys. Like we need a wide receiver, we need a running back. We could definitely use one, but I don't think we need one until like the 4th or 5th round. Because this draft is so deep. Like it's deep, insanely deep with wide receivers, a lot of running backs I like as well. But I feel like our wide receiver core, is infinitely better than people are giving it credit for. And you mentioned with Denzel Mims, possibly you're supposed to be a first round pick. I think it's crazy that some people are saying, Denzel Mims can't be a wide receiver 1. Like people are just saying that already. Like that's a thing. Like we don't have a wide receiver 1. There's no potential for one. We need one. If you wanted to maybe address that, because I think that's crazy.
Yeah, I think Denzel Mims, I'm one of the biggest Mims fans out there. I remember doing all the mock drafts last year, and he would not get past the first round each time. And we were on the clock in the second round, and he was on the board. I was like, oh my gosh, please take him. And then we trade down. And I'm like, oh my, are you serious, Joe? Like, you have Denzel Mims right there. That's a first rounder that slid, like, mistake. And little did I know, he still slid all the way back to us 9 picks later, and we got him. I think he has wide receiver 1 potential written all over him. I think that Jets fans that don't see it is simply because we did not see it in his rookie season because of injuries and the Adam Gase effect. I think that he is a guy that can do it all. His size, his length, his speed, his ability to go high point the ball up high and, work the sidelines. He has every single trait you want in a receiver, and I really feel like he's going to break out. And I also love Corey Davis. I think that's a very good underrated signing, similar to Carl Lawson. I mean, Carl Lawson and Corey Davis are the 2 guys that we spent the most money on. And he's a guy that's 26 years old. I still feel like the best is yet to come. He's a guy that's a football just guru. Obviously, anybody in the NFL is a football guru, but Corey Davis is somebody that really lives and breathes football, and that's exact the type of guys that Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh want to bring in the building. So I love that's our 1 and 2 receivers. We got Corey Davis, who is a former 5th overall pick, and I feel like never lived up to that because of injuries. And then when he got healthy, they drafted A.J. Brown. So he never really had the ability to be that number 1 option. And hey, he was 16 yards shy of having 1,000 yards with the Titans last year. That's with being next to A.J. Brown. That's with being in an offense that's dominated by Derrick Henry. So don't even tell me Corey Davis doesn't have wide receiver 1 potential as well. I think he was like one of the best receivers in the league in terms of play action passes. And that's what this offense is going to be worked around is play action passing. So having those 2 guys on the outside, Jameson Crowder on the inside, we all know what he brings to the table. He's very consistent. And then Keelan Cole being that wide receiver 4. I love our 1 to 4. I feel like we can afford drafting a receiver later in the draft that we can provide depth. Outside that 1 through 4, Braxton Berrios, he's going to be more of a special teams guy. Whatever he did fill in for Crowder last year, it felt like he got a touchdown every game somehow. But, Vincent Smith, Jeff Smith, those guys, I feel like we need to bring in a rookie for sure later in the draft, like 4th or 5th round. I'm very confident with this receiving core. It's just hard to put your confidence into something where we haven't seen it. I think that's why Jets fans don't really want to admit it. It's because we saw a nightmare of injuries to the receiving core last year. So the more depth, the better.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it, man, with the injuries, and that's the biggest thing. Shout out to, Jimmy mentioned Julio Ceiling on the with Jimmy. We do the Weapons Hot podcast on Fridays. We talked about the fact that they brought in all these new medical staff guys, and they were all doctors. It was literally off the list. He was reading it off: doctor this, doctor that, doctor this. That was a big issue for the Jets, and I think Joe fixed that. Joe addressed that. But like you said with Mims, people saying he can't be a wide receiver one. People forget he was supposed to be a first round guy. Like you said, supposed to be a first round guy, available with that second round pick. Joe trades back, still gets him, which is amazing, because that tells me that he doesn't just understand value on the board. He knows what other teams are going to do. Like, he felt confident. Okay, these 9 so teams aren't taking Denzel Mims, so that's awesome, because to know what other teams are going to do, that gives you a whole lot of wheeling and dealing power. So that's awesome. It's exciting to see what that guy can do in the draft. But with Denzel Mims, like you said, you mentioned what he did last year, the legit numbers he put up. We talk about guys, that are wide receiver ones right now. Allen Robinson was the 61st pick in the draft. Kenny Golladay, the guy the Giants just signed, was the 96th. I mean, he was supposed to be a first-round guy. He slid, but it doesn't matter where you go, and I feel like we've seen a lot from him.
Yeah, exactly. And DK Metcalf is another one that comes to mind. I mean, you can bring up a lot of receivers that went late in the second round, third round, and they are wide receiver ones on their teams. I just feel like it's destined for Denzel. I wanted him. I didn't even think we had an opportunity to get him last year. And the fact that we actually got him, and I just feel like a lot of playmakers that were on the Jets last year under Gase we're gonna see completely different from them. We know what happened with Miami. Guys like Devontae Parker, first round pick, people are looking at him as a bust, and then Gase walks out of the building. Now Parker is a beast whenever he's on the field. Obviously, he has some health concerns. Mike Gesicki as well. He's a tight end that looked like as a bust under Gase. Gase leaves. He's blossoming into a very solid tight end. So hopefully that can happen with the Jets with that Gase effect. We could see Chris Herndon take that step. I feel like we had a lot of high hopes from him, and then he got that suspension and injury, and then year 3 was an absolute nightmare. So hopefully we can get that same type of Gase effect where the playmakers that were looking terrible under him can blossom under LaFleur in this brand new offense.
Yeah, man. And before you mentioned, the solid top 4, I love it because, in my notes, I literally have it right here. Mims, Crowder, Davis, Cole, solid top 4, because that's just literally how I feel. It's completely underappreciated. Davis, you mentioned before, people forget he was a 5th overall pick. He went so high, first receiver taken in the draft. He destroyed it at Western Michigan. The guy still has, if I remember correct, the most receiving yards in all of college history with 5,000 something, and then second in touchdowns with 50 something. A lot of potential there. People, say all the time, we need that true wide receiver one. It's a different league now. We saw with guys like Patrick Mahomes, you need to be able to spread the ball out. And having a guy like Davis and Mims that both have wide receiver one potential. You got Crowder in the slot, like you said, underappreciated. I don't know if you want to maybe mention it for a second, but I thought it was nuts these fans that wanted to get rid of Crowder in the offseason just because Curtis Samuel was available after having one good season. When Crowder was, not just the best, one of the best slot receivers every year. Literally every year, he's one of the best slot receivers, but because he's making 11 something million dollars and none of it's guaranteed, let's move on to a guy that has one proven year. I don't know how you felt on that situation.
That's fine. I felt the same way. All the people that were saying cut Crowder, sign Samuel, I was like, you know what? Why would we do that? Crowder has been the only good receiver on this team since he walked in the building. He's been the best receiver since he walked in. I just feel like that would have been a mistake. Obviously, the mindset of, well, you're getting younger and you're getting more years out of him. Well, Jameson Crowder, especially that we're bringing in a rookie quarterback, he's a security blanket. You need him, and I feel like he's going to thrive under LaFleur's offense. They need slot receivers like him that create open space, go over the middle for play action. I'm happy they kept Crowder. I feel like it would have been a mistake because you got to let him, he deserved to be a Jet again. He deserved it. With a nightmare of a situation he was brought into with Gase, he made the most of it. So I'm happy that he's here. I feel like it would have been a mistake if we let him go.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, one of the arguments was not just the money, but we don't need a slot receiver in this new system. But I don't get that. Every system needs a slot. Has people, think of any 3 wide receiver set. Pick a 3 wide receiver set wherever he lines up, even if it's, not directly on the interior, it's going to be on the inside. It just, none of it made sense to me at all. But you mentioned tight end with Herndon and everything. That's a big question mark I feel like we have right now, because we have two solid blocking tight ends in Wesco and Croft, which I love, because we talked about the offensive line being weak and struggling and, having a lot of issues. Blocking tight ends that can be fullbacks helps. And they signed Croft literally for that reason. We have Trayvon Wesco, who's forgotten in that capacity. Two guys that can help lock down that line. But at receiver, Daniel Brown was signed. I mean, I don't have that many high hopes for him. I mean, Herndon he did really good his rookie season. He was hurt his second season. Last year, he didn't do a lot, but you mentioned it, how, when he was given the opportunity, he did well. And that's why I wanted to point out in the last 4 weeks of 2020, Chris Herndon's catch percentage each week was 100%, 75%, 100% again, and 77.8%. So is it, he's not getting the opportunities? That's what we need to find out this year. And we could use another receiving option. And that's why, shout out to Jimmy. Jimmy wanted us to bring up his mock. I was going to bring that up in a bit, but just to point out, he brought up potentially going with, Freiermuth at 34, which isn't a bad option. I mean, Freiermuth is, if you take Kyle Pitts out of the equation, he's the best tight end in this draft. And he's the best complete tight end in this draft because he's an excellent blocker as well as an excellent receiver. So, I mean, he's not Kyle Pitts in receiving capacity, but he's very damn good, and he's also a good blocker. I kind of want to go offensive lineman there. I mean, that's the way I feel. I feel like there's tight ends I like later. Maybe get a guy like there's a couple of guys. I mean, there's Tremble, but he's more of a blocker. He can develop into a receiver. Brevin Jordan is, I think, available probably in the 3rd round. That's a decent receiving option. There's a guy, Quinnen Morris. He's a sleeper at Bowling Green. He doesn't get a lot of recognition. He can go late. That's a guy I like, but I feel like right now that's a bigger question mark than wide receiver.
Yeah, tight end's definitely a big question mark. And I think a big problem with Chris Herndon was his confidence. I feel like he just was not there mentally. And that's, a shadow of the coaching staff. If you're a bad coach, you're not going to bring confidence in your players. And that's what we're hoping that this new coaching staff is going to implement, a new system that can really provide the best for players. They are confident out there. They feel like their best self is yet to come. And I feel like Herndon has the talent, and his issue was confidence. And he would be dropping wide open passes. He'd be all over the place, not running the right routes, miscommunications with Sam. Whether it's Sam's fault or his fault, we don't know. So I think that with the system, we're going to see a different Herndon. I really feel like that. I think we're going to see the rookie Chris Herndon, if not better, this season. And I would not go tight end that early in the draft, but I definitely think we need to get a tight end later on in the draft for sure.
Yeah, man, I would agree. I mean, Freiermuth, I wouldn't be upset. I definitely wouldn't be upset if that's the pick at 34, because he reminds me of those old school tight end ones. He's not exactly like Antonio Gates, but a guy in that capacity. A guy kind of like what Kittle is in a way that can do everything. A guy that he's going to line up and block, do the dirty work, but he's also going to get 100-something yards in the game. So he's not a bad option at all. Like you mentioned, I'm a big offensive line guy. Like, hell, if you want to take 3 offensive linemen, 4 during the draft, I'm not going to fight you. I mean, that's your call. I'm down with it. So I'm never going to argue that. I think that's definitely the way to go. But especially a tight end. I mean, you mentioned with Herndon, dropping balls, stuff like that. We pointed out at the end of the season, he had a decent catch percentage. If you look at the numbers, though, I looked this up as well. In 2020, you talked about him dropping a lot of passes, but he actually had a catch percentage of 68.9, which was actually 17th among tight ends and the highest catch percentage of any Jets player. So, like you said, the potential is there. Hopefully, we're seeing a new Herndon in the system. That's the hope, that he's going to be better, be able to be that receiving option. Definitely should get one later in the draft.
Yeah, but, I agree.
Yeah, man. So, there's so many positions we talk about wide receiver. I think we're pretty good there. One position we didn't talk about, I didn't mention, is running back. I also feel same thing. If you look at the running back situation, you don't need a guy like an Ezekiel Elliott anymore. There's not that many guys left. There's like 1 or 2 or 3 of those guys, big money running backs. Teams make it by committees now. That's what Robert Saleh's system is. He literally has functioned with committees and made, guys like, a Raheem Morris, a guy that, hasn't been that good, quite good. So I feel like our committee's underappreciated. Ty Johnson, Josh Adams, they complement each other well. I'd show that their numbers were actually, their averages were good last year. They just didn't get the opportunity. Because Adam Gase is like, let's just feed it to Frank Gore. It doesn't matter that, in the Las Vegas game, the 2 of those guys had 170 almost yards. Let's keep feeding Frank Gore. But their numbers were high, man. Their averages were high. Everything was high, except for the fact that they were getting like 2 carries a game. But other than that, everything was high. You bring in a guy like Tevin Coleman. I think the running back situation is also underappreciated.
I agree. It's a running back by committee, like you said, with the system we're implementing. And I'm very high on LaMichael Pirine. I know some Jets fans are kind of counting him out, and I feel like he's a very slept on part of this running back group. He maybe not fit the system in place, but when it comes to Pirine, what I like about him in particular is he's good at everything. He's not great at anything in particular. He's like average at every part when it comes to running back. He has average footwork, average burst, average speed, average vision. He doesn't lack anything, in my opinion. And I feel like if you have those qualities, then if a coaching staff can really implement them and provide it the best, I feel like Pirine could be a very good running back in the system. I know Tevin Coleman fits the system way more because he's more speedy. He can get around the edge. He can take it to the house. Tevin Coleman is going to be that veteran presence. Josh Adams, I think he's going to be more of that training camp guy where he is going to provide depth. If there's any injuries, he's going to be called up. But yeah, I think the running back group is very underrated. And I like the Tevin Coleman signing because he knows the system. Obviously, he's going to be that veteran presence for the young guys like Johnson, Pirine, and Adams. I expect him to draft, maybe get an undrafted rookie in the building or draft one later in the draft that really fits the system that they can build around, because the teams that really have that running back by committee type of offense, they always draft running backs late. It feels like every draft or every other draft, they always are getting new blood because the running back position is such a unique one in football where it's like the only position I feel that you're in your prime on your rookie contract.
Yeah, and I'm with you, man. And it's interesting because you look. I talked about the other day when I did a video on the history of the NFL a little bit. When we were kids, the running back, it was a different position. Like I remember, the days of Curtis Martin, the days of Jerome Bettis, the bus. Like that's what football was. Like literally, that's where the saying came from. It was a game of inches. But the game evolves. Football changes. I mean, we go back to I talked about Johnny Unitas and how he developed the quarterback position. Before that, there wasn't really any down throwing deep quarterbacks. It keeps changing, and now we got guys like Mahomes. It's a pass heavy league. That's what it is. And the running back position, unfortunately, you don't need that guy anymore. It's the same reason you see guys like, a Saquon Barkley comes around every once in a while and a team takes him high. But it's going to be far and few between. We're going to be seeing running backs, like you said, going later on. So I don't know. If you want to maybe mention, are there any specific running backs that you like maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rounds-ish?
Yeah, I like Chuba Hubbard a lot. Jared Patterson catches my eye if they want to get a guy earlier like Trey Sermon or something like that. But there's a lot of running backs in this draft. At the same time, a lot of people say this is the weakest running back draft in a long time. So it's going to be interesting. But I think it's deeper than people give credit, and I'm on the Chuba Hubbard train.
Is that true? I actually haven't heard that. People are saying that it's a weak running back class?
I heard one person say it. I don't know where. I saw it on Twitter actually today, saying this is one of the worst running backs classes he's seen.
Man, whoever's saying that, you got Kylan Hill, kids in the 4th, 5th round. That kid's electric. I mean, he does everything. He's a good pass catcher, quick, agile, run through the tackles as well. You mentioned Hubbard. Khalil Herbert is another guy I'm huge on. That kid, I think, I might be mixing up the school. I think he's the one from Virginia Tech. He's awesome. Herbert is really, really great. He could be a really good option. Elijah Mitchell, a kid from Lafayette. There's the guy we took the other day in our draft. I don't know why I'm blanking on that. Javian Hawkins, the kid from Louisville, the one that ran behind Becton for many years. I could list 5 or 6 guys. I wouldn't call a bad draft at all. I mean, there's a lot of guys there. Same thing, a wide receiver. If you want to maybe double back to that, are there any we mentioned wide receivers later in the draft? Are there any specific wide receivers that you like with those later picks?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many receivers where it's overwhelming. I like Daz. I like, it just feels like there's so many players where I remember last year I was looking at the draft and I wanted to get a receiver late, and we drafted one in the second, and I wanted another one late in the draft. And unfortunately, we didn't do that. I wish Douglas drafted another receiver last year because I feel like that would have been the best bet. But I'm high on Daz a lot. That's my guy.
And that's a solid option. He's awesome at North Carolina. I like Daz Newsome a lot. Daz Newsome's a good one. I don't know if you've checked out Anthony Schwartz. That kid is another one. Insane gadget option. I've tweeted videos out of him. When he runs, it's like everyone else is in slow motion. He's going to be an outstanding deep threat gadget option. It's literally I could talk for 20. There's so many wide receivers in this draft late. Marquez Stevenson is slept on. Jonathan Adams Jr., Tamorian Terry. it's just the list goes on and on. Like this is, I think Daniel Jeremiah said it, that this draft, probably the deepest position is wide receiver.
And I hope that Douglas capitalizes on that and hits on a pick in like the 5th round or something where we can bring him in. We got 2 fifths. So let's get one of those as a playmaker. We're getting Zach Wilson in the building. We got to protect him and surround him with weapons.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. So just going back for a second, because earlier in the show, you mentioned the linebacker situation, and same kind of thing, with the linebackers, I feel like we need to, especially because, like we said, with Mosley, could be a question mark, could get hurt. We don't know. Davis is without a doubt a question mark. We can't pencil him in, with something great, and Cashman can't stay healthy. So potentially there's no one there. I don't know who you like, I'm thinking potentially getting a topper echelon guy in like the 3rd round, like Nick Bolton I mentioned, and then maybe doubling down a guy in like the late 5th, like Charles Snowden, or maybe in the 4th round, a guy like Chaz Surratt. Those are a couple of guys I really like on how you feel in the linebacker situation, but that's a major need of ours.
It's huge need. Like we talked about it earlier on. I think Douglas and Saleh definitely has a plan for that position. Like you said, we brought in Davis, and he's a flyer. We don't know what he's got. We're hoping that he has untapped potential, but we don't know. I like Moses, but I don't think they're going to go that route. I just don't see them going super high. If they do want to draft a linebacker, it's Bolton. I'm all in on him. I think he'll be there round 3. So I'm all in on Bolton. I feel like he fits the scheme. But if they want to go high and shock us and get Collins or Jeremiah Owusu-Karamoah, then that's going to be crazy, because I just feel like every single year, anybody that goes deep into draft analysis and educates themselves on all these prospects and are fans of one team, we get like none of our favorites come to the team. I think Denzel Mims was the one guy, and Mackay were like the first 2 guys that I think Jets fans really wanted. When we were on the clock at 11, we all wanted Wirfs or Becton. When we're on the clock in the 2nd round, we all wanted Mims, and we got Mims. So, but later on in the draft, we wanted this player, and then it goes that way. So that's the reality of it, and just expect the unexpected.
I'm with you, man. And that's how I felt, back in that first draft when I felt Joe nailed it. I'm a big draft guy, and I've always been. Since I was younger, I watch a lot of college football, love digging deep into the prospects. There's always a couple of guys I like. One of my sleepers was Hall. When we got Hall, I think I screamed like a little girl. Like, I love that kid. Like, the potential was just through the roof. Another sleeper of mine was Bryce Huff. I do not understand how he didn't get drafted. Makes literally no sense to me. Unbelievably talented, performed really well at, I think it was the Cotton Bowl that he played in that year. We got him as an undrafted guy. I loved it, man. Like, each of his hits was just...
Yeah, I had him mocked at like the 5th round, I remember last year. 5th, 6th round. And like, I don't know how he went undrafted.
Yeah, no, I didn't get it either. Like, I had Huff, like, he was one of my sleeper edge rushers. Like, I still think he can be great, especially now they're bringing in a guy like Curry that can mentor him, motivate him. Lawson's on the other end. People are saying, Franklin Myers is better on the end. I wouldn't be shocked if, Huff really breaks out in camp and it's Huff and Lawson as, the 2 edge rushers, with Curry as like a veteran presence that subs in for like, Huff. And then the interior is just a combination of Williams, Rankins, Franklin Myers, maybe occasionally steps to the outside. But I'm a big Huff guy. Like, I really am. Like, I like that kid a lot.
Yeah, I think he has a lot of potential. I feel like he was one of our best edge rushers last year, and he made a lot of plays in the run game as well. He's explosive off the edge, and it's going to be interesting to see what this defensive line can do, because I think that's definitely our strong suit, and I think Jets fans are super excited to see those guys out there, especially with Robert Saleh, unleashing them.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. I mean, we talked, like you said, we mentioned Hall was good last year. Franklin Myers was good last year. Well, that was in a bad system. That was with Gase and Greg Williams. So they were good last year. What's it going to be this year? Like, like the sky's the limit for guys like that. But Kevin brings it up here, shout out to Kevin. Appreciate you guys being here and commenting. Feel free to comment throughout. Says, excited to, so much to be excited about. All those things will happen offensively if we get Zach Wilson and strong protection. And that's really important. Like, like Richie was talking about, like I was talking about, building that offensive line. So I don't know if you have a preference potentially of, how you would go offensive line with those, because you're with me. I've been offensive line at 23 and 34 for a long time now. And I've kind of set my mind after looking into it, with wanting the better pass, wanting the cerebral, wanting the better run blocker in Davis. I'm pretty set at Creed Humphrey at 23, Wyatt Davis at 34. Like, that's been my picks for a while now. but I know a lot of people like Tevin Jenkins, a lot of people like, hopefully Vera Tucker falls. So I don't know how you would play that situation out.
Yeah, I think if you can give me two of those four, I'm happy. If it's Creed Humphrey and Wyatt Davis, sign me up. If it's Tevin Jenkins and Creed Humphrey somehow falls to 34, sign me up. That's not going to happen. Or if Wyatt Davis, Tevin Jenkins, Wyatt Davis, yes. If Elijah Vera Tucker, if we trade up to snag him and then draft Wyatt Davis, I'm down. I think that we need two of those four guys. I don't want to get my hopes up because it's unlikely, but I said this multiple times in the stream, but I just feel confident with Douglas running the show because I know that he prioritizes the line of scrimmage, especially on that offensive line, and he wants to build it through the draft, and that's the way you got to do it.
Yeah, and it's just me. It's like I feel like like screaming like it's about time because like that's what it is. I mean, I'm a big offensive line guy. I always want quality offensive linemen. The Jets never take them. I mean, the highest offensive line when we took over the last couple of years was Chuma Edoga. And then before that, it was, I think, Vladimir Dukas. Like, I mean, they don't take offensive linemen for some reason, but it's not, a hidden magic that the offensive line is one of the few positions where you need it. And like, these first round guys, like you can hit a lot of other later rounds, but you need to address offensive line high. Joe gets it, like you said, he brought in Mekhi Becton, who was my favorite guy. So many people loved Andrew Thomas. So many people loved Wirfs. So many people loved Jordan Willis was another one. I love Mekhi. Mekhi was my guy. Like I was huge on him, the beast he is, the way he played at Louisville. When Joe took him and then said that this was the guy I wanted over everybody, that's why I'm hoping, man, that he's taking Creed. Because like I'm hoping he's thinking like me, that I need that better center play. I need that cerebral aspect like Mangold had to help that rookie quarterback to develop with him, to show him things he'll miss, to kick the ass of the guards, to make them play better. It's my hope.
It's all of our hope. We need this offensive line revamped because without that, look out, because Zach Wilson was a guy that did not get pressured at all. I mean, he obviously got pressured, but one of the least pressured quarterbacks, and he thrived at BYU, and he is used to having protection. So Douglas knows that, and he said that he's not going to make the same mistake that previous, regimes have done with the quarterbacks here. So let's hope that they can build this offensive line properly. I'm right on board with getting Creed Humphrey at 23. I'm on board with getting Wyatt Davis at 34, Tevin Jenkins, Elijah Vera Tucker. Build this offensive line early in the draft so you don't have to worry about it, and then tackle the skill positions and corners and linebackers later.
Exactly. No, I'm with you 100%. And that's why, you mentioned linebacker again. That's why I think Nick Bolton, same thing like I was saying, with Davis and Humphrey, I'm kind of locked on them. The more I think about the fact that, Mosley could be a question mark, the more I feel like we need to nail it and get Bolton. Because Bolton, is that kind of guy that can step into a mic and lead a defense and be that, field general on the field, but also step into an outside linebacker position, cover, tackle hard, blitz the quarterback. So I'm starting to think, it's funny, as we go closer, like I already had Humphrey lock, Davis lock. Now I'm starting to lock Bolton in there at 66. I'm hoping he makes it because, I feel like he's slept on. Like I would honestly go far enough to say that I think he's better than guys like Zaven Collins. I think he's massively slept on. Like Jeremiah has him listed as his 39th prospect. If we can get him at 66, I hope Joe Douglas sprints so fast up there, he gets winded.
Yeah, man, there's a lot of players to love in this draft, and we can only hope that they slide to where we go because we do all this homework and we want our favorite prospects on our team. And I'm just so ready for the draft, man. I'm so happy that it's only 2 days away. No more weeks, 2 more days. And we can actually discuss about what we did and not what will we do.
Yeah, and I can't wait, man. And same thing, you said you're going to be doing, a live feed if you want to, tell the people how they can access you there and view that.
Yeah, I'm going to be live on Jets Media on YouTube for all 3 days. Jack, who is my co-host on all my videos, he's going to be here with me. And Ali will be tuning in as well. And we're just going to have live reactions to the Jets picks and every single pick in the draft. So if you guys want to check me out, it's Jets Media on YouTube. And it's going to be hours and hours. It's kind of like a chill back, relaxing live stream where we're going to be having fun and interacting with the chat and, react live together because we're all going to be glued to the television for 3 days straight this weekend.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. And that, the same way, I mean, the draft to me is like, I think about it, people talk about Christmas and holidays and like the draft is it for me, man. Like that's my day. Like I can't think of another day like I'm more excited. Like there's a difference in the air. Like it's just, it's
Yeah.
different on draft day. And I get so excited, for all the, like we talked about all those years prior, just letdown after letdown, after anger, after throwing things. Finally, a guy like Joe Douglas, I can't wait for the second draft. Like you mentioned, it's just days away. We've been talking about it for so long. It's almost here. Like we can taste it. It's right there, man. It starts in like literally basically 48 hours. I mean, in about 2 hours or so, it'll be 50 hours.
Yeah.
In 50 hours, in 50 hours, man, start the clock, start the countdown. In 50 hours, we got it. Richie mentioned it, that he's going to be having his thing. Definitely check that out. I'm going to be doing a thing with Jimmy. We're going to be on the Weapons Hop podcast. We're going to be doing, same thing, talking about the picks, talking about the draft, going through guys. You guys know I'm a really deep draft guy. So I'm going to talk about what other teams might possibly be doing, guys I like, different ways we can go, reacting to the pick. But yeah, it's exciting, man. And I can't wait. But yeah, I want to definitely thank you for being here. It was an absolute treat and a pleasure to talk to you, my man. It was a lot of fun always to talk about the Jets. You have a lot of awesome opinions. Agree with a lot of them, which is great, especially like that offensive line. A lot of stuff you were saying. But yeah, thank you for being here. And if you want to, shout out to the people where they can find you and all that great stuff. And so you guys see it's all on the bottom as well. You should check, Richie out. He does it all. He does the Mets. He does the Knicks. It's all there.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, Harrison. I love being a guest on these shows because I know what it's like being the other side, interviewing. And I just love having, a bunch of people in the Jets community getting into this industry of podcasts and live streams and journalism and all this stuff. And I just want to thank you again for having me on. I had a lot of fun. You're definitely a draft guru, and I respect the passion because you're not going to make it in this field if you don't have authentic passion, if it's forced and you're just trying to do it for fun. If you're just trying to do it for the, the business aspect and you're not doing it because you love it, then you're not going to succeed in life. And no matter what you do. And I can see that the draft is your passion, and I'm happy to be on the show. You definitely educated me on more prospects because when it comes to the draft, I'm definitely not as educated with the prospects as you, but I'm happy that I was here on this podcast with you, and you have a bright future here on this podcast and with your co-host and everything you're doing. So keep going, and the results will come. And the Jets, they are going to be Super Bowl champions this decade. Record it right here on this podcast. We are going to win a Super Bowl under Robert Saleh and Zach Wilson. Let's go, Jets. You guys know where to find me over on Jets Media, Knicks Media. I also have a YouTube channel that's about the NFL for those guys interested. It's called Touchdown Kingdom. It's not about the Jets. It's about football in general. I put out a lot of mock drafts out there. I'm going to be pumping out a lot of content. It's not me on camera. It's going to be content of, highlights and top 10 this and slept on that and all that good stuff. So check me out, Touchdown Kingdom, for all you NFL fans. And yeah, you guys know where to find me on Twitter and all that, and appreciate you having me on, Harrison. Had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great, man. I appreciate the compliment. It was a touch to the heart. Appreciate it very, very much. Thank you. Yeah, it's fun to get in here. And yeah, I love this stuff. Like, if I didn't like it, I wouldn't talk about it. Like, I'd find something else to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, exactly. But yeah, man, you definitely have a lot of stuff going on. I love it with, the football stuff you're talking about, all the different mocks. And it's fun. I mean, like you said, at this point, I'm kind of, mocked out.
Yeah,
but
I am mocked out.
Yeah, it's like I keep doing them. And like, I feel like I'm starting to get like agitated. Like I do them and I'm like, no, it's coming. Like
yeah, it's coming very soon. 50 hours.
Definitely, man. But again, yeah, thank you for being here. All you guys tuning in, we appreciate you for tuning in. Thank you for being here for this special presentation of the Take Flight Spit and Fire podcast. Just to remind you guys, we're always usually on Mondays. So if you guys tune in on Mondays live on YouTube at 7 p.m., that's where you're going to find me, always there, talking about them Jets. So we're going to obviously, talk about the draft. I mentioned, me and Jimmy are going to be, doing a after the draft thing where we're going to talk to you guys. Check it out on the Weapons Hop podcast. The Weapons Hop broadcast. You can find them on the YouTube as well as other platforms as well. We'll be doing that for the draft. But yeah, man, I really, really appreciate you being here. And thanks for tuning in. And all you guys out there, thank you again for being here for the Take Flight Spit and Fire podcast.
Let's go, Jets.